Welcome into another episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I am Will Thomas, and today we are continuing our transfer portal series, and we are on to the Mississippi State Bulldogs today. We're about getting halfway through all these SEC teams. So if you haven't seen your team and you've enjoyed it, subscribe to me. And if you want to see yours coming up, I'll have it for you guys in the next 10 or so days. We're having a lot of fun here, breaking down all the portal rosters, and then we'll get into full roster mode, schedule mode, as we're previewing the football season all summer long. But let's get straight into it, starting off with Mississippi State here. So they had 41 guys transfer out without even a coaching change. Jeff Lebby is still there. He's still the head man. They had 41 dudes transfer out. Just to highlight a few of those guys who are kind of the most notable. Tony Mitchell in the secondary. He was rated very, very highly coming out of high school. He spent some time at Alabama, but he is now moving on. He is just a talented piece in the defensive backfield that Jeff Lebby will have to try and backfill. Another guy, Luke Cromanoke, who was a quarterback. He started his career off of Florida State. Then he came here last year. He's gone. Now, I think that part of why he left was because he knew that Kamario Taylor was going to be the guy who had the job this upcoming season. So you lost that depth piece in Cromanoke. But we'll get to how Jeff Lebby addressed that here later on in the video. On the defensive side, they also lost Kedrick Bingley-Jones, a big D lineman who is now at Alabama. He was a pretty highly rated guy. He was pretty productive. Obviously, he's going to the Crimson Tide. So when a school like Bama comes after one of your players, you know that you had a pretty good guy there that slipped away. But Bingley-Jones might be the most valuable player who hit the portal. But let's get into now some of the upside stuff. Let's get into what Jeff Lebby did to backfill and to just really boost up this roster for this season. Starting off with Marquise Johnson, the receiver from Missouri. He had 28 catches for 340 yards and 2 scores last season. Now, he's your smaller slot gadget guy. He's 5'11", 185, very, very quick. So he's not really, go outside when you would jump ball downfield, but he's a playmaker. You have Anthony Evans also in this receiver room. I do like Marquise Johnson and Anthony Evans getting to run alongside each other. So that could be a pretty dynamic-looking passing game among those receivers this year for Mississippi State. Going to the defensive side now, Dylan Evans, a defensive lineman from Texas A&M. So he only had 5 tackles last year as a true freshman, but he was very highly rated. He was a blue-chip guy when the Aggies got him out of high school. So you know that the physical tools are there. You know that the talent is there. The question is, can Lebby and his staff then develop him and really turn him into that monster that a lot of people thought he was going to be immediately out of high school? And there's no reason for me to believe that they can't. I think that getting a guy like Evans in the portal is very valuable because he has those athletic traits. So we'll see if they can develop him and turn him into a bit of an animal. Staying on defense, Amari Williams, the edge rusher from Florida State. He had 10 tackles and 1.5 sacks last year with the Noles. But what was interesting is that they also had him at tight end. He was kind of trying to figure out where his niche was in college football. But now coming to State, he is going to be focusing on being an edge rusher. So you already have some of that production. He was behind a couple of other guys who were older guys in that room at FSU. So now that he's going to be one of those featured dudes at Mississippi State coming off the edge, and he'll be focusing on just that position, I do like his ability to play even better and be very productive for State this year. Still on defense, in the secondary now, Jameer Grimsley, a corner from Florida. He was a blue chip recruit, didn't have a whole lot of action last year in Gainesville with how full that secondary room was. But if you go back to preseason of last year, the coaches were raving about Grimsley's athletic ability. And we saw it as a recruit, him coming out of high school, just his instincts, his length, his playmaking ability. It's all very good. So I do think that Grimsley will be a pretty early contributor for Mississippi State this year in that secondary. And then 2 more guys on offense that Jeff Lebby brought in. One is the big ugly DJ Chester, an offensive lineman from LSU. He was the top interior offensive lineman in his class coming out of high school. He was a 4-star guy, and he did get some good reps with LSU last season. And I think that he's a guy who can really help lead this offensive line. He's not very old, so he'll be more of a younger, sort of star potential presence. But I think he can be one of those anchors and one of the guys that really does hold this offensive line together for Mississippi State. And then finally, Jaden Rashada. You probably recognize that name because there aren't many schools he hasn't been to, but he was a very highly rated recruit coming out of high school. Then he committed to Florida, and there was a long NIL saga with, what was he promised? Did he not get it, all that? So then he ended up with stints at Georgia, Arizona State, and then he was at Sacramento State most recently before coming back up to the power level, to the SEC level, to now be with Mississippi State. So he hasn't done very much in his college career on the field. It's been mostly figuring out where can he be long-term, where's an actual home for him. So he's definitely more of a depth piece. He will not start over Kamario Taylor by any means, but I do believe that losing Cromanoke and then replacing him with Jaden Rashada, there's nothing wrong with that. I do believe that having Rashada in there as a depth piece in the quarterback room is a pretty good pull for Jeff Lebby. So just looking ahead to, their season, I talked about this earlier on my pages in a short. Mississippi State this year reminds me a lot of Arkansas last year in a sense where they have a lot of offensive weapons. Kamario Taylor. I talked about Marquise Johnson coming in and Anthony Evans at receiver, but also Fluff Bothwell at running back. He's a star. I think they have the individual pieces on offense to really put together some exciting plays and score a lot of points. But I do have questions about, is this actually a team that can win a bunch of games? Because last year's Arkansas team, they were elite on offense, moving the ball up and down the field, scoring a bunch of points. They went 2-10. I don't know if Mississippi State is going to be that bad record-wise, but unless the transfer additions of Dylan Evans, Amari Williams, and Jameer Grimsley all hit, that defense I'm a little worried about. So I do think that Mississippi State on offense, mainly with guys they just retained, have a lot of firepower, but these transfers do supplement that. The biggest question for State is, and for Jeff Lebby's future, is was he able to create a defense with what he had there and what he brought in from the portal to make this a viable team, all 22 guys. Because if State makes, another bowl game this year, you probably give Lebby another year to really keep it going. But I am worried about what this defense can be overall. But the portal class they brought in, overall, it's a lot of really good players. It's a lot of high-ceiling players, but we need to see how Lebby and his staff develops them. So if you have enjoyed this portal video, you've enjoyed my past portal content, and you just want all of this SEC football preview stuff all summer long, subscribe to me here and follow me on Twitter. I am Will Thomas, and I will see you next time.